de partager avec vous les informations. Si vous avez des questions après ce webinaire, n'hésitez pas à nous appeler, on sera toujours à votre disposition pour répondre à toutes vos questions. Bon webinaire à tous.
Merci, Sephora. Carla, Paula, and Sephora, please add your email addresses to the chat, and we invite all of you, our audience, to contact them directly and to use us as your gateway, a very convenient gateway to the vibrant Israeli ecosystem. This is actually what we are doing. To tell you briefly, while we are an official governmental organization, our service is actually unique. It is completely pro-business. It's results-oriented, with the main focus to find good match between what Israel has to offer in terms of technology and innovation to where there is true need for specific solutions. In most cases, technologies for those who have specific needs. We are connected to the best specialists and the best databases available in Israel to keep track of the very dynamic, the very quickly changing ecosystem in Israel. Right. So in this spirit of efficiency and focus, we will try today to be quick and not to go a lot beyond the 1 hour mark, or maybe a bit more. We have 3 parts in our events. The first is our keynote presentation. The first, we will hear 5 innovative startups give a presentation of 8 minutes each, a pitch of 8 minutes each. And last part will be the Q&A that will allow you, the audience, to ask questions. Questions will be put on the chat, and you can do this in Italian, Spanish, and French, as well as in English. So let's start. I would like to invite our keynote speaker today, Professor Fait, to share his presentation with us. Professor Fait from Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, which for those who don't know is the Israeli desert. Professor Fait has specialized in food crops response to arid desert climate. When I asked him right before this session to present himself, how to present himself, he simply said that he is a plant biochemist with passion for wine and for the desert. And I think it's an excellent way to describe what we are trying to do in this session. So Professor Fait, the floor is yours. Thank you for coming, for being with us today.
Thank you for the invitation. And it's a pleasure actually to be among you. I will now, first of all, switch to silent mode. And I will share my screen, right? I should be able to share it. Let's see. Okay, cool. So, I have about 20 minutes or so. Please, 1 minute or 2 minutes before the end, just tell me, Aaron, shut up. And if there are questions, you can write them in the chat, you can email me, you can ask after the lecture. So I'm working at the French Associates Institute for Agriculture and Biotechnology of Drylands as part of Ben-Gurion University and the Jacob Blaustein Institutes for Desert Research. It's an amazing place. I lived there as well for about 10 years. And simply really an amazing place to do work, do science, and live. It is in the Negev desert, just below the 100 millimeters rainfall, as you can see from the map. So when I first got there from Germany, from my postdoc at the Max Planck Institute, I looked around and I saw vineyards, and I asked myself, why produce wine in the Negev desert? And actually the answer was because it was always a place where wine was produced since the Nabateans and Byzantines. And actually, I would suggest, like it is cited here in the bottom of the slide, we should change the sentence of the Exodus describing Israel as a land flowing with wine and honey, because I must say that milk, not much in the desert, but wine was always present in the past at least 3,000 years. And this goes a little bit in contrast to the general classic knowledge of the best places where to make wine. If you look at this chart, actually, and Israel fits with hot climate, let's say 19 to 22 degrees average growing season temperature, well, we are actually far beyond that in Israel in the summer. You might see that Israel, the best product would be raisins. And I believe that in the past 30 years, this concept that Israel cannot really grow a good wine or produce a good wine was totally contrasted by the evidence. And even in the desert of the Negev, I must say, in the past 15 years, more and more quality wines started to be produced. So actually, seeds of wild grapes were found in the area where Israel is today that dated 80,000 years ago. So it's a long history, long love history between grapevine and the region. From there, you had domestication processes, and pretty soon, 6,000 years ago, just a bit after the beginning of agriculture as we know it, like 10,000 years ago, you had the wine-making techniques, which reached also the region and the Negev Desert. Moreover, during those days of the Phoenicians and the Roman invasions, the Israeli kingdoms actually exported wine, and exported wine in quantities by using really the naval routes and the market of the invaders. Now, this is an amazing picture. I like it because it's me 10 kilos ago and 10 years ago or more. And I have a wine press. This is a wine press at Ovdat, is in the middle of the Negev Desert. You see the size of this wine press? And I like this because just in the background, you see this green spot, which is modern, nowadays vineyard. But this press really comes from the Nabateans and Byzantine times, more than 2,000 years ago, when Netafim was just a dream somewhere, and also, obviously, asphalted roads and transportation were not available. The size of the big buckets that were collecting the juice, you can see at the bottom right. So they had a large production. The climate was very similar. The Nabateans and Byzantine grew their vineyards in places close to their villages, using a terrace way of growth of the vine. And this was to exploit the little rainfall that we had in the area. This is another amazing picture. This is an adult guy in the middle of a wine press in Shifta. Again, we don't have just one bucket, we have actually two buckets, huge buckets. This means that one was not enough. So they had to dig two of them to collect the juice. And so they were producing a lot of wine. Now, but still in modern time, if we look at the modern time, after a lag of about 1,000 and something years, in modern time, Israel was not a big producer of wine until the very last decades. We had like 4 liters of wine per person, which is the amount that French and South Americans and Italians drink about in a month, I would say. And so the production really started to change with also with the culture, the Israeli culture. And today we are above the 40 million bottles of table wine a year, increasing 5% yearly. But let's go back to the desert, because it is in the desert that actually the desert viticulture and viticulture in a climate change environment is being tested nowadays. So the Israeli wine industry discovered the desert very recently. And this because of the fact that more and more competition started in the wine industry, so that large, medium, and small size wineries try to found their space in the market. And so they expanded their grapevine, their vineyards, also to areas which were not usual for the modern wine industry in Israel. Now, the terroir of the desert can be related to the high radiation, the water deficit. There is a constant water deficit. The atmosphere is very dry. There is obviously a steep temperature delta between day and night. And the temperatures during the day are quite high. Not much of cloudiness, I would say, especially during the growing season of the vine. So that in general, it sounds like a good place where to grow a vine with the due cautions. So when we started to work in the laboratory for desert viticulture some 12 years ago, we wanted to understand how we could introduce viticulture as a sustainable crop for semi-arid and arid environments. And this was needed a really dedicated investigation and research into individual grape cultivars in respect to the irrigation, the light exposure, and the soil characteristics of this area. Now, one of the issue in the desert, but not only in the desert, is light and radiation. Radiation is fundamental to sustain grapevine growth, plant growth, to sustain sugar export to the fruit, and production of aroma precursors. But radiation can be also harming the same qualities of the fruit, leading to fruit burns and oxidation of the aroma of the wine eventually. Another issue is the loss of water. You don't have water in the desert. We do have irrigation, but the plants are always under a deficit because of the lack of humidity in the atmosphere. So we have plants that are called isohydric. I will not enter too much into the details of it, of course, but isohydric plants, they feel stressed, they're closed their stomata, and they keep water inside, but they don't grow. That's the dilemma. And anisohydric, they decide to keep their stomata open to grow, but eventually they could dry out. In vines, we have, in the Vitis vinifera, we have a large variety of both isohydric and anisohydric-like varieties. And here I show one of our project that we are running during these years in collaboration with the R&D of Ramat Negev and with the University of Ariel. Basically, we collected, we have a collection of 30 different varieties, mostly red, 20 red varieties and 10 white varieties. And we grow them in 2 places in the Israeli Negev plateau. One close to Mitzpe Ramon, which is pretty high in respect to altitude, and another one in Ramat Negev. Now the difference are basically 2 degrees average temperature difference between these 2 locations. Now, why we chose this study? Not only to introduce new varieties in the area and see which varieties fit better, but we decided to use these 2 locations also as a model to understand how a 2 degrees increase in temperature, average in the season, could affect the wine industry, could affect the main commercial varieties that we have on the market. Therefore, we are using basically the desert as a model, as a laboratory to estimate how different varieties will respond to climate change. So we collected a lot of data from phenology during Verizon, during harvest. We decided also to run several biochemical analyses for aroma precursors, for chemical composition, and for oxidative damages on all of these 30 varieties. And we did that for 3 years. We also, in collaboration with Ariel University, did also microvinification and tested the different wines. And the results were that we have a clear cultivar specificity in the response to the changing climate. So there was not a conserved response. There was definitely an advantage to white varieties, actually, because white varieties would mature earlier and therefore kind of escape the worst month of August. Red varieties instead went through this month of August, and there were those varieties that were very much negatively affected. Other varieties among the reds were almost not affected by the change in temperature. And so that we cannot give actually a general statement that could represent all of the varieties, beside the fact that white varieties were sort of on a different strategies. So an escaping strategies of the heat load of the desert and heat load of the summer season. And for the red, it was cultivar dependent. But more you can find in the Frontiers of Plant Science of last year paper of phenology, and we will have another 2 papers on carotenoids and polyphenols coming out soon, so you can stay tuned. Now, this just to show you what can radiation do to the fruits, to the clusters during the summer. By the way, the temperature, the skin temperature in the summer of an exposed bunch can reach 50 degrees easily, 40 to 50 degrees. So think about it for 2 months, a daily 40, 45 degrees. So you need to think of techniques on how to protect the clusters, not to renounce to produce wine, but to do a wise viticulture with the strategies that can help the fruit to develop and mature in a more healthier environment. Okay. Now, another issue is the irrigation. And we did also here several experiments using deficit irrigation. We took two main varieties, and here I will summarize very fast, Shiraz and Cabernet Sauvignon. These two varieties are really at the opposite of being as isohydric and anisohydric. We did greenhouse and field experiments. Eventually, the results are very clear. Cabernet Sauvignon is stable, is much more stable than Shiraz in respect to the alteration in its physiology and also in its metabolism, both of the leaf and of the berries. So if you want to go for a product that can, in a desert environment, that can be rather stable, go for Cabernet Sauvignon. If you want to go for something more interesting, go to a more anisohydric cultivar like Shiraz, which respond very fast to the stress and presents a lot of metabolic alteration, which could be used for the better, for having a more interesting product, let's say. Similar experiments we introduced also in Italy with our colleagues in Udine, from the University of Udine. This is an irrigation system with netafim. These are Merlot vines. And we, you know, this is one of the most wet areas in Italy. And it's amazing that we bring water saving and irrigation technologies to one of the regions with highest rainfall in Italy.
We have 2 minutes to go, okay?
Perfect. Okay, so I'll skip a few slides. And we talked earlier about the radiation, right? First, talked about varietal differences, then drought or water deficit and irrigation strategies. And then the radiation issue comes back again. And this is from the architecture point of view of the vine. So we did several experiments by exposing the vines, the clusters to the radiation, and other using nets, as you can see in this slide here, or to change the architecture of the plant, of the canopy, to give more a natural shading. Making a long story short, which was also published in scientific journal, and you can find this from Noam Reshef, my former PhD student, definitely an improved cluster defense helped the metabolic and the aroma characteristics of the fruit to be more balanced. Not to lose anthocyanin to degradation, because temperature is the real enemy of anthocyanin and also of aroma precursors. Therefore, one of the conclusions of this study is that if you want to grow vine in the desert, you cannot grow them like you are in Bordeaux or like you are on the Golan Heights or anywhere else in the Mediterranean basin. You have to grow them according to the needs of the desert environment, which are shading of the clusters, good irrigation, and producing some homogeneous and high quality fruit. So I will stop here. So if there are any more questions, I'll get that.
Thank you, Aaron. We do have a couple of questions, not a lot of time, but
yeah, we have. So the first one is from Juan, if it would be possible later on to have this presentation. I don't know, we will give instruction later on at the end of this presentation. And the other two questions that came to you, Aaron, is this. The first one is there, Aaron, is in Israel, is able to cultivate American hybrid varieties, or like in Italy, is not allowed?
So in general, the import of new varieties into Israel is very problematic. We had also, we wanted to import rootstocks hybrid from Rochedo from Italy. and it was simply impossible to convince the Ministry of Agriculture to help us doing that. So unfortunately, I would say that that is not possible for the moment, but you know, politics can change in respect to agriculture as well.
Okay, we have other two questions. The first one is whether did you distinguish between the effects of the high radiation and the effects of the high temperature on grapes?
Yes, we did, because eventually by creating this tunnel, these nets, we screened off radiation, but the atmospheric temperature, the temperature inside the tunnel was exactly the same as for that outside the tunnel. So the effect of the radiation expresses itself in increasing the surface radiation, the surface temperature of the berry, okay? So if the question was if we separated the surface temperature of the berry from radiation, no, because actually that is the effect and the damaging effect that we could see from our studies.
Okay, there is another question about it's when do you install the shading, at which point of growth?
Very good question. We didn't test it. We started on Verizon, okay? In general, I think, in general, talking to the farmers, they preferred the natural shading. So to open up the canopy from a VSP to a sign, so that the branches could eventually form more vegetation and shade the clusters. But this comes to a cost, is more water, more leaf surface area. The tunnels were for the farmers a little bit more complicated because they are always there, or you have to take them down and up and down and up. So they are a little bit more negatively seen by the farmer. But it would be interesting to study at least when it is really needed, the shading, because possibly the shading could be needed just during the very late stages of maturation, during the when you reach top anthocyanin, and then you close, you protect the cluster, and you let the engustment part to be a little bit longer.
Okay, we are receiving a lot of questions. There is one that is asking, what are the average yields, ton per hectares, and water usage, liter for square meters under those desert conditions?
So, well, the product, the yield depends on the farmer, okay? If they want to produce a good wine, or they want to produce a very good wine, so that's basically the parameter that will define the yield. The water, wow, this is why we started this project, because actually if you move from farmer to farmer, they actually use extremely different amount of water for the vines. And this is just because they don't really know the needs of each of their varieties. They look at the plant and they go with the general knowledge, and that is it. But a Shiraz will need a certain amount of water to have optimal water for its roots. A Cabernet Sauvignon will need another one. So it is very, very hard now to give a number that could be that could fit every variety or every farmer goal.
Okay, we have more, but I don't know, Yaron, if we can go ahead.
I think we need to move forward. We appreciate the questions, but if we will have time, we'll go back to them in the end, right?
Okay, I will
have
write
a Q&A
down.
session in the end. So thank you very much, Aaron. I think we will move to the second part of our webinar, which is the pitchings by our 5 startups. And I invite the first startup, Talia, the CEO, Oded Distel. Oded. please.
Thank you, Yaron, and a great pleasure being here today. Good afternoon, Israel, Europe. Good morning in Latin America. And I will share my screen with you.
8 minutes of that.
Sure. Great. So, okay. So Talia is all about the power and the beauty of simplicity. We take great pride in our simplicity, and I will explain in a minute. So 2 words about myself. Until recently, about a year and a half ago, I was a colleague of Yaron and Lior and Jonathan, part of the Ministry of Economy. And a year and a half ago, I moved to the private sector and became the CEO of Talia. So you can see the difference in the 2 pictures. And what we see is that agriculture is under tremendous stress, and we have to come up with better solutions to the way we do agriculture. And the fact that Talia is able to provide and to offer something extremely simple and yet sophisticated and accurate and smart is because we team up with the best system ever, and this is obviously Mother Nature. So we work very closely with Mother Nature, and we create what we call ideal microclimate to the root zone. And I will explain very briefly what we do without going into too many details in order not to exhaust the time. But very, in a nutshell, we work in a holistic approach and tackle a lot of different elements simultaneously. And as I said, using very basic laws of physics, of nature, in order to achieve our targets. So one, and to what Aaron just described, we save a lot of water to the plant. And we are doing it because we are directing all source of water to the root zone, and we prevent evaporation from around the young plant. And by that, we can save somewhere between 30 to 40% in water irrigation. We can work with rain-fed agriculture and with irrigated crops at the same time. So water saving. On top of that, we prevent weeds from growing all around the plant, which means that our young plant has no competition on nutrition and on water, which means that all resources are directed straight to our plant. We mitigate extreme weather conditions, and again, in the desert climate, this is very crucial. We can lower the temperature of the root zone in about 4 to 5 degrees, and vice versa in cold temperature. The bottom line is that we have plants, in our case, vines, that grow better, faster, healthier compared to the regular protocol. And I would like to share with you a few examples of projects that we are doing in different parts of the world. Obviously, I will highlight projects that we are doing with vineyards in different places. Here you can see very clearly the soil. Once we take out the mitra, we call our product mitra, which is a wound in Greek. And this is exactly how we look at what we do to the young plants. where like a mother taking very good care of its young babies. So you can see the soil here, which is very healthy, very aerated, lots of oxygen, all the microorganism ecosystem is flourishing. So the soil, the conditions are exactly as I said, ideal to the root zone. Those are results from a pilot that we did in India. I will not go into too many details, just to highlight the results. And you can see here, this is the results in kg of Thalia compared to the protocol plots, meaning we have almost 400% more yield compared to the protocol. And again, I will not use too much time to explain. Anyone who wishes to get the report, we can send it right after. Those are some projects that we are doing in Israel with vineyards in the desert. And it is important to say, the harsh the conditions are, the contribution that our mitra gives to the young plants is greater. And obviously, desert conditions are very tough conditions. So this is in Israel, this is in the US, in a pilot that we are doing with the New Mexico State University. Those are young vines that were planted in Australia. It's a pilot that we are doing with the university in Wagga Wagga, with the nation of Australia, in order to address the very tough conditions due to climate change that are now in Australia. So this is in progress. On the right-hand side, you see a plantation in Israel of an organic farmer growing persimmons. And this is important to say because by using Thalia, farmers can reduce dramatically or abolish altogether quantities or usage of fertilizers and pesticides. And it is very useful for organic farmers.
1 minute of that, okay?
Sure. Again, so this is a vineyard in South Africa. You can see a very sloppy mountainy terrain. And Thalia is, the mitra prevents soil degradation. So we are very useful also in this aspect. So this is a project in South Africa and another vineyard in Israel. Also very useful in cold conditions. As I said, we mitigate extreme weather conditions. So also cold conditions that might be relevant in Europe, we mitigate a little bit the temperature. And at the end of the day, this is the way we would like to see modern vineyards with kind of a mother protecting the young vines and assisting growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oded. Right on time.
Right. Great. Just to say that we have representatives in different countries, Chile, Mexico, and Australia, but we are looking for representative distributors, partners, strategic partners, and we are open for all type of cooperation. Thanks.
Thank you, Oded. And now I invite the CEO of Viridix, Tal Maor.
Thank you, Aaron. Hello, everybody. Nice to be here. Thank you for having us. I will share my screen. So Viridix is very related to what we just heard from Aaron and from Oded. And Viridix is about irrigation. Just a quick introduction about myself. First of all, for any question, since we don't have much time here, you can contact me directly. And as you can see, Viridix is very related wine growers and wine makers, because this is me in my winery. I am also a wine grower and a wine producer. So irrigation. In Israel, as you just heard, and you probably know, irrigation is essential. And we understand that for every crop that we are growing, we need to irrigate. But all around the world, in some places that already use irrigation, but other places that don't use irrigation now understand today more that with irrigation, they can be much more efficient. And when we are irrigating, the problem is that we need to understand what's the certain amount of water that we will irrigate for each segment in the field in order to get the best yield. And in wines and vineyards, it's much more essential, because it's not just about quantity of the yield, it's more over the quality. And in order to do so, we need very accurate data about what's going on in the field. We need to have this data in real time to be able to analyze this data and to do everything in a very scalable way. So we don't need to work for this solution, but the solution will work for us. And Viridic's approach for this is to understand in real time what's going on inside the soil with the root zone of the crops, and then making the irrigation much more efficient and much more easy to work with. So gathering the relevant and accurate data, make it in real time, analyze it in a very simple way, and having it with a user-friendly interface, that's what we're doing. And before I explain about the product itself, just to phrase one thing about, with one technical term, which is water potential. We have a very experienced audience here, so I will not explain more about it. Water potential, basically, it's the energy that we need to invest in order to collect the water from the substance. We know that in vineyards, we use to measure stem water potential. Viridix is about soil water potential, and it's very important to understand this term before we go on. So measuring the water potential in the root zone used to be a very problematic until now, because if we use tensiometers or other equipment, we need to maintain them. And we know that in vineyards, when we use irrigation in very small quantities, and we have big gaps between one to other irrigation, the stress in the soil is not enabling us to use tensiometers or other measurement tools. So we came with this sensor, we call it the root tense, which is actually an artificial root. It measures not like tensiometer the soil tension, but the actual water potential in the soil. And with this data, we can actually optimize the irrigation based on what's going on in the roots. And as Aaron said before, we need to maintain the irrigation protocol for each variety in a different way, with different protocol. And with the same data that we have, or unified data that we have with the water potential, we can make it in a very easy way all over our vineyards. This sensor, and it's very important, can be installed in any depth. We have installations up to 3 meters depth, which in some crops it's very it's essential. We can measure, the range of measurement is unlimited. Right now, the basic sensor is up to 120 centibars, but we can measure up to 10 bars of water potential in the soil. It required no calibration and no maintenance for years, and it's been approved by some of the agricultural R&D centers and most of the biggest irrigation companies from Israel, and approved. On top of this sensor, we've built a full IoT solution, so we can transmit all the data and send it to the cloud. We can add almost any other sensor that's relevant for the irrigation. It can be stem water potential, it can be other sensors that are relevant for us, and we get all the data in one place in the cloud. And then the farmer or the agronomist can adjust his interface and see the relevant data for him. So it can be drilled down to the raw data, or it can be just alerts and high level of what's going on in the field right now in a very, very intuitive way. And the system can work for any crop type, any soil type, any irrigation system. We have farmers that irrigating with flood irrigation and pivot irrigation, and of course drip irrigation, and almost and we have almost any crop around the world. So last thing about the system is that we don't just having all the data in one place and in a very easy way without any maintenance and hassle. We can analyze the data in a very simple way. So each one can define his own algorithm and create the irrigation protocol, and then actually act and operate the irrigation system in the field by connecting the data to the irrigation controller. We have many collaborations with irrigation controllers, companies and others in order to get the best value for the farmer, the agronomist, or the researcher. Just two taste case about what we do with vineyards. This is an example from Italy, where they tested the water potential with Viridix system, comparing to a pressure chamber that we all know that cost a lot and have and it's very hard to work with, and the correlation was amazing. So what we see in the leaf of the vine, it's also what we see in the roots. We have some delay, we need to understand it, we need to define the right irrigation protocol for each variety, but it's really something that we can work and replace the pressure chamber. Just another example, the last
Just
one.
1 minute, Tal, okay?
Yeah, thank you. In the right side, you can see this is not vineyards, this is other orchards, but you can see that the farmer irrigating 6 times in one period because he don't really know what's going on inside the soil. He see the plants, and comparing to the left side, when the agronomist is defining the irrigation protocol and irrigate only 1 time. And we have distributors all around the world. As you can see, our focus is in Europe and Latin America. And if you have any other questions, feel free again to call me. Thank you.
Again, we will. You can add questions in the chat, and the companies will answer them both in the chat, but we will also have a dedicated Q&A session when they finish, in which we will tackle some of the questions. So thank you very much, Tal, and we move to our third pitch from AgriTask, and I invite Omri Krikeb.
Hello, everybody. I'm sharing my screen. Can you hear me? Are we on? Yes. Okay, so my name is Omri. I'm from AgriTask. I will try to be brief. AgriTask is a flexible data collecting platform. We are up since 2010. We have offices in Israel, Bulgaria, and Brazil. We're about 85 employees. The main things we are dealing with is data collection in the field. We don't teach or change data collection. We just don't want people shouting or writing on papers anymore, which is the most common things, maybe Excels. And some people that start adopting very good systems, for example, Viridix, and then they have another satellite images, and then they have a weather station, and then they have irrigation computer, and then the systems don't speak with each other. So we connect to everything, including John Deere and so on. We don't teach anyone how to grow, what to do, how to do it. We let you lead the way. So if you check our clients, for example, around the world, you will see from very big growers in Brazil or in the desert of Peru, or eucalyptus or citrus, to ag buyers like 400,000 coffee growers of Starbucks, General Mills, Heineken's. You will see projects around the world with universities, input providers like seed producers or even fertilizers, and also agriculture insurance, where we help them see many farmers and reduce the risk for agriculture insurance policy for a farmer. But if we look at the table horizontally, we can see that the system can actually serve and be flexible to give all the requirements for all of these guys. So the general capabilities are the digitalization, taking everything that used to be in shouting, in your language, in papers, in final documents, and create it in a digital way, in I would say a stupid-proof workflow that can help you avoid mistakes in any level. You have a dashboard to see all your vineyards, all your growers, what are the top hazards, what's the latest news. We have even a place in the application to see how is the harvest going on. You can see we changed the names, but it's from wine grapes. What is the yield estimation? What is the total harvested? So you can follow up on harvest, be ready in the factory. If you have Phytophthora, leaf roll virus, or other diseases, so our system is also GIS. It means the guys in the field will measure and pinpoint the problematic vines, and you can have them mapped, send a sample, or see they are good and go, see it's bad and uproot them and follow up on the progress of every disease in your farms. And this table, I think, will conclude. In Israel, we work with 5 out of the 8 big wine growers. In this table, you can see the whole season of a farmer of wine. So you can see from the dates they started this season to the or the last report to the areas they have, the first day of trimming, the first stage of bloom, until the harvest. So this is being updated in real time during the season, and the agronomists and the helpers and the support team of every winemaker know where to go and when they are needed in every farm. In their claim, it saves 1 week of work per expert. So in a small vineyard, it's about 2 weeks, and in a big vineyard, it's about 2 months. We also give NDVI, which we calibrate to every wine variety. As you said, Shiraz and Merlot are not the same. So you can have your own library of NDVI images to see if there are something wrong or droughts or problematic points. We give, as part of the service, IBM weather and weather forecast. So you get a forecast in a virtual station that will be in every place, every one of your vineyards. And the integration. So we take an integration case here in the desert, where we have 80 different vineyards, in every vineyard about 10 to 12 plots. So we speak about 150 vineyards scattered all over the place. In each one, they have their own weather station and sensor for evaporation, their own computer of irrigation, and everything is now connected. So you have the guy with manual test of leaf pressure bomb to see how much water intake the plant has. The green line is the strategy of the expert, how he wants this vine to accept water during this season. You can see the daily minimum and maximum penman, VPD, and you can see the irrigation events. Now, all these 850 vineyards and plots are connected, and we are not expecting the farmer to follow up on them. We want him to say, what are you looking for? And then he explains if the distance between each line goes above 2 points, if minimum is above 3.5, or if maximum is above 7, I want an alarm. So now he can sleep peacefully with his own terms and alarms to his own vineyards in all over the place in different conditions. You can benchmark all your farmers and start seeing different comparisons between varieties and regions, between different farmers, and inputs. Anyway, any data that is in the system is pivotable, playable. It is your data, and you can download it in Excel from any point or graph or table in the system and play with it more. In Israel, the farmers donate this data without their names to the agriculture centers so they can do big data analytics and give back new tools and new ideas. According to my time,
1 minute left, Omri.
according to my time, I am out. So I think I'm ready. Even if you have a question now, we have 1 minute left for this question.
I think we'll give you back this 1 minute at the Q&A part.
Write it on my name.
We will.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I invite Nadav Leshem from FruitSpec. We don't hear you, Nadav. You're muted.
Nadav, you're on mute.
Okay. Hi, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here and to be a part of this. So thank you for inviting us. I will share my screen. Just 1 second. Okay. So as I said, I am Nadav from FruitSpec, and we are doing wine grapes yield prediction and yield management. What we're actually doing is we help wineries to boost commercial results and to optimize viticulture by providing accurate yield data. Like Omri before me spoke about data, so data has a big significance. And the way that we are doing that is we are using hyperspectral vision, hyperspectral cameras, and machine learning and AI algorithms to count the clusters very early in the season. And later on, during the season, we distinguish between the different color tones for optimal harvest timing. And in the last 2 or 3 years, we've been talking to many commercial, small, medium, and big wineries and very famous wine professionals around the world. And we understand that one of the main needs in the global wine sector is accurate data and the kind of data that will help or that will impact the decision-making of the winery. And that decision-making is in a few verticals. One vertical is the viticulture, okay? I need in advance the prediction of number of clusters, or where should I go out and fin, do my manual finning for higher quality wine. Same thing is when should I harvest my foods. In the logistic verticals, we understand that the inefficiency in the manpower management and the unoptimized crushing and bottling operations are all caused due to lack of accurate data. And obviously the most important is the commercial and the finance vertical of the wine sector, which we see a lot of vagueness around the budgeting. We see hardships of controlling the costs. We see losses of revenues in sales and very high OPEX, vineyard OPEX, I mean. And we thought on how can we solve this, and we used our experience and technology, and we came up with what we think are very efficient solutions. Let me tell you how we do that. So we take hyperspectral cameras and install them on an agriculture vehicle. I would be happy during the Q&A to elaborate on hyperspectral vision if needed. We take this vehicle, and by the way, I didn't mention this, we are service providers, which means that we are doing all of the work. We do not sell the product, but we provide the service. So we take in a vehicle with hyperspectral cameras and go to the vineyard and scan the rows in the vineyard. The data is uploaded to the cloud, and on the cloud there is an algorithm that can count, or to be more precise, can distinguish between the clusters, the bunches, and the leaves. And we are talking very, very early in the season when the berries are about 8 millimeters. After we distinguish the bunches and the leaves, we later on count the bunches and the berries. And as I said, during veraison, we go into the orchard, to the vineyard again, and we distinguish between the different colors of the berries. I'm going to play a video of how it looks like in real life. Okay, this is a veraison scan. I hope it will work well. Okay, so what we saw here is how are things looking on the front end. Okay, and if you go out and meet our team in the vineyard, this is what you will see. But if you would go to our R&D team and you will ask them, how do you analyze those images? So this is how we do it. Okay, this is in the back end. So what we see here is an RGB image, and this is the way that we see those images. Okay, and I've made sure that we notice the bunches on the vines. I'm sorry, it's going to run again. And then, as I said, we count the bunches and the berries. And so once we have this data, but we want to give, we want to do better, okay? We want to do for the vineyards and for our partners and customers, we want to provide them with tools that will help them do a better job and that will help them manage their yield and manage their season in a more accurate and a more efficient way. So one of the tools is the heat map of the cluster count, and we provide on a plot level a heat map that will let the agronomists know in which parts of the plot there are more fruits, more bunches on the vines, and in which part there are less. And on top of that, we provide the total number of clusters per plot, per hectare, and per vine. Another very efficient tool is the thinning tool. What we see here is actually a map of the orchard divided into segments of 5 meters. In this specific map, or in this specific vineyard, I'm sorry, there is in each 5 meters there are 3 vines planted. And what we see here is a request by the customer telling us that the threshold on the vine load management, so the threshold on number of clusters is 24 clusters per vine. So if we're looking on a segment of 5 meters or in 3 vines, we're talking about 72 clusters per segment, and we've marked the green squares as segments with less than 72 vines, and the red squares with segments than more than 72 vines. So the agronomists know how to allocate his staff and send them exactly to the places that needs to be thinned. This is obviously for manual and selective thinning. One more super efficient and crucial tool that we've developed to help the wine sector is the color uniformity. What we're doing is we're using the hyperspectral vision and our advanced algorithm to distinguish between the green berries and the purple and red berries on the bunch, okay? And we can actually clean out all of the green berries in the plot and have the agronomist make a decision, is it to go or no go? Should I go out and harvest this plot, or should I wait another week or another 10 days or another 2 weeks before the majority of the bunches in the plot are ready to be harvested? This is an example of that specific report on a Merlot. So the right graph is the number of bunches containing green berries, and the left graph is
Nadav, you're nearing your time limit.
Okay. Great. Okay, so the benefits that we provide are clarity, process optimization, and increased revenues. I'll be happy to elaborate later, but we're providing database for decision making, and we're helping forecasting an accurate bottom line. And one of the biggest benefits is higher revenues on a single bottle. Very shortly on a case study, we'll finish on that. So we helped one of our customers increase the revenues in $5 million per season by improving the quality for 22 hectares of those 22 hectares are used to be lower third quality. Now they're first quality only because of the thinning and the harvest timing. About the company, the company was founded in 2016 in Israel. We are an experienced team of 25 employees located in Tel Aviv, Chile, Spain, the United States, and South Africa. Hope you enjoyed and it made sense. I'd be more than happy to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Nadav. And we will move to our last speech. Before we reach to the Q&A session, our last speech from SoftRide. Jonathan Horwitz, please.
Thank you. Last but not least, that's for sure. Great. So first of all, thank you everyone, especially for the Ministry of Economic. For me, it's a great honor to speak in front of this audience. So we're SoftRide and we are driving farming forward. So we are a team with high expertise in autonomous driving capabilities. We've been working in the last years with the leading autonomous driving companies in the world like Google, Uber, Mobileye. And we're bringing this core expertise of autonomous driving into farming and specifically to vineyards. And our mission statement is to transform how agricultural activities are being done today and make them be completely autonomous. So not too long ago, this is how squeezing and pressing of grapes was being done. By treating, by Fait. So this is, let's say, this seems like a long history ago, but today we're using smart machineries that will automate. We don't need manual work to do all of this work. And basically, we see that as an ongoing process. And in 10 years from today, we believe that most of the agricultural activities will be automated. But we don't want to wait those 10 years. So we as SoftRide, with our core expertise, we have the technology to start automating farming processes today. So we have kits today. I'll show you some videos that we're selling globally. And this is the first kit that we're selling. So it's a retrofit kit. You can transform your existing tractor to drive autonomously. You have sensors that you install of it, LiDARs and LiDAR sensors. You have a mechanical actuation solution that connects to the steering wheel and gas and brake pedals. You have smart nozzles that allows you to turn on and off the nozzles and conduct very precise spraying, which I will elaborate later. And a communication solution that you will see what the tractor does and really control it. So this is the kit that we're installing on tractors. Some real demonstrations in vineyards. This is in a vineyard in Italy. I hope you see it well. So we install a kit on a tractor in Italy. As you see, it's a very narrow vineyard, and we have the capability to drive in very, very difficult areas, narrow areas with sharp slopes, and basically drive even better than a person. And we're not just driving straight. We have obviously the capability to do an accurate U-turn. So this is an example. This is a U-turn that a regular human driver was not able to do without reversing and doing an additional maneuver. So this is how we're doing that. As I said, complex. And on top of the retrofit kit solution for our tractors, we have also an autonomous robot, small ones that we're selling, fully autonomous. They are being used today for plant protection spraying, weed spraying, also data collection for people that don't want drivers to drive and collect data. But we're not just doing driving. because for agriculture, you need to do a specific task. And the first task that we're starting with is spraying. And we're not just doing spraying, we're not just reducing labor costs. What we're doing is doing smart spraying, meaning we can identify whether there are trees next to us and activate and deactivate the nozzles. So what you see here, if you look on the yellow chemical tank, you see that the nozzles are turned on and off if you have a tree next to you. So our kits not can only transform tractors to drive fully autonomously and reduce labor costs, but also reduce significantly chemical costs. So this is the products that we're doing. A little bit about the capabilities of our retrofit kit. So we just finished to sold our first batch. We're opening the second batch and you can order our kits for May. And the capabilities that we have, it's very robust and rugged systems. So we meant to deal with very harsh conditions. The first kit that we will sell will not allow you to remove the driver from the cabin. It will allow you a cruise control. So think about it like you're inside the vehicle, but the vehicle does everything. And this cruise control allow you to do spraying without no skipped rows, without double spraying, optimal spraying in matters of the location of the tractor, the speed, the RPM. You have smart spraying which reduce the chemical cost. You have after that a spraying report and real-time data to see what the tractor does and optimize mission, meaning that we have the capability to plan in an optimal manner how the tractor should spray, when it should stop and go to the spraying tank for refilling. So that's the first kit that we're opening for sale. And if you will order it today, you'll get it by May. And after that, we're starting the pre-ordering of our full autonomous kit that will allow you to remove the driver. We are supplying with that, not just the retrofit kit, but also a command and control center and a remote operation capability. And that said, so we are starting to sell those kits. We do provide priority for the full autonomous kits to customers that already bought the automatic spraying kit. So we'll just upgrade their kits. Obviously, we will reduce how much money they have been paid for the automatic spraying and for the upgrade. So those are the kits that we're selling today. And so if you are interested in our product, please sign up for a live Zoom demonstration where you can get online and see our autonomous vehicles in action and order a kit. This is my email, jonathanage@softride.tech. And I want to thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And that concludes our 5 pitches, and we now move back to Paula and for our Q&A session.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. So we can go back to the first presentation made by Oded. So Oded, I saw that you have already answered to some questions, but for the benefit of all the audience, I will raise a couple again. So the first is this one. Under this system, the concentration of root is more compared with other systems where the roots spread more and can take more nutrients in a poor desert soil. So I saw that you already answered to this question, but if you can elaborate again the answer for the audience.
So I'll make it brief. What we do in our Mitra is mostly used in young plantations. So when the tree or the vine is very young, in any case, the roots are concentrated underneath the Mitra. Once the plant grows, then the farmer can spread the irrigation system and the root zone can spread around. So we do not prevent the roots from spreading. It's totally in the hands of the farmer whether he wishes to concentrate or to spread it around, and we are not preventing it.
Okay, there is another question about the lifespan of the system.
Great, yeah, I forgot to mention, the meters can be used up to 10 years, which means that in regular fruit trees like avocado or mango or apples, you can use the same units, the same mitra, 3 cycles, meaning every 3 years or 4 years, you can take it out and install it in a new plantation. With vineyards, farmers in many cases keep it for many, many years. So the duration is 10 years.
Okay. So thank you very much, Oded. I will jump to Tal, because we have also a couple of questions for Viridix. So Tal, there is a question about the correlation between the root soil potential and the basal leaf pre-down water potential.
Yeah, sure. So there are different ways to measure water potential in the plant. It can be in the stem, in the leaf, in different timing around the day or the night. And we found a good correlation between all of them to the roots water potential. And I think that it's for each method, when you are using plant measurement for water potential, it's usually 1 point in a week. And it's important to understand that with the roots, we can understand in real time consistent measurement. So we are measuring every 1 minute or every 3 minutes. One thing about this is usually we have some delay, because when you are measuring in the plant, usually that's the situation that the roots has hours ago or sometimes days ago. But yes, we can we have a great correlation, and the tool enable to the grower to understand in real time, in high resolution, what's going on and how to manage the situation.
Okay, and there is another question, is the sensor similar in principle to the MPS sensor manufactured in the past by Decagon company? And if is it a porous piece with a TDR or FDR with the sensor inside?
Well, that's a great question. No, the answer is no, because the measurement is not any kind of electrical measurement. It's a physical measurement. So inside the porous clay, there is a material that acts exactly like the roots of the plant. And what we are measuring is the pressure that this material generate. So it acts exactly like the roots and doesn't have any electrical measurement like EC or TDR or others.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Tal. We have a question for AgriTask. So Omri, please join.
Yes.
So there is a question about if the software also track cost of the operation and the inventories.
The software tracks whatever the client tracks. We learn from every farming operation, big or small, how they work to the smallest details, and we keep the system, we design it so they don't need to change how they work. They can keep the same workflow, the same measurement, the same language, all. So the change to digital world will not be a boom or a shock. It will be smooth. Actually, they can train me on the system better than I can train them, because it's their system with their design. And I forgot to say, we have a representative in Italy, in Chile, in France. We have Davide in Italy, and for all the rest, if you need, talk to me, I will send you to the right person.
Okay, thank you very much. So we can move to fruit spec. We have a couple of questions. The first one is for Nadav. What do the different colors of the cluster mean in the image? If you can repeat, you mentioned in the presentation, but if you can elaborate better about this aspect.
I've seen this question, and and I imagine they mean the different colors in one of the tools that we give, the uniformity tools. So we look at the entire plot, and we see all of the bunches, and we clean out the green berries, and that's one of the things that we see is the number of bunches with red or purple berries. And then we look on those specific berries, on those specific bunches, and we understand the color uniformity. Are the berries in the same color tone, which is good enough, or the color tone is sufficient for going out and harvesting those fruits and those plots. And I imagine it was the question asker. I saw it. There was a few questions raised. I imagine he was talking about that.
Yeah, because the second question is about the system, if it can detect also disease or nutrition problems in the vineyard.
So we can do that, even though we do not focus on vine health or tree health for other crops, but we focus on yield and yield management. We can definitely do that, but it's something that needs to be designed on per project or per winery. And obviously we can integrate with platforms like AgriTest that does show those.
Exactly. Okay. And there is another question about the system work well even when the canopy is completely covers the bunches.
So yes, it can work. Our algorithm can compensate for what the camera doesn't see. We have a statistical algorithm that knows that a cordon, a tree is a vine will send 3 bunches and they will be covered and there are leaves on it. I will say that for some varieties and for the, let's say, the cheaper wines, the wines that are not getting the windowing process, and everybody here is a professional, so we know what's windowing, it will be more difficult for us to see those. So if we're talking about €3 wine, there is a good chance that we won't be able to see all of the bunches. But if we're talking about €10 wine, then we will see all of the bunches.
Okay. There is another question for Tal. So the question is, what is the depth of the place, the sensor, and does it work well in the rocky soil with large with large rocks such as anthrosoils?
Well, yes, we have many installations in very rocky soils, specifically in vineyards and other orchards, which are our main crop that we are dealing with very harsh topography. And the right depth is really depend on the specific crop type and even the specific variety of grapes, for example, or the rootstock that you are using. Usually, we are measuring 2 depths in order to understand the entire root zone. In grapes, what we are doing usually, it's the first one, the shallow one is between 20 and 30 centimeters, and the deeper one is between 40 to 60 centimeters. That's where the active roots are usually.
I don't see any other question. Maybe about SoftRide that didn't raise any questions so far. I have one. So, Jonathan, how far is the integration of your system? How do you see the integration of your system into the vehicles, in the tractors? How far is this integration? Because you provide now a kit, but how far is this reality?
So those kits are kits that were implemented. I'll separate it into two answers. So those kits exist today in tractors, and we are, let's say, selling and installing them. So that's like for that part. In matters of integration time, you install those systems in, I would say, roughly 4 or 5 hours. That's the installation time on the on each tractor. And basically, what we're saying is after those 5 hours, you can fully drive autonomously, reduce significantly labor costs. So that's the only thing, 4 or 5 hours.
Okay. We have another question. No, that's it. No, okay. Sorry. That's it for now.
Good. So it looks like we've reached the end. Anyone wants to add anything? My colleagues, Jonathan or Lior, or any of our panelists. You know, we've seen a lot of interest in this webinar, and it raises, you know, things are happening in this area and in this field. And I don't know, do you have any free thoughts on this?
I have one, Yaron. I would love to share. As a wine grower and a winemaker, I have many friends in each one of the countries that we have our attendees from. And usually I keep hearing the same thing. And today I see that it's the opposite, and I'm glad to see it. Usually my friends telling me, we're in their countries, we're not like Israelis, we're not adopting technology for vineyards very fast. We are a very traditional industry. And by the number of the attendees today, I see that, and I'm happy to see this, that people understand that technology in agriculture is something that we need to adopt. And as soon as we do this, we will gain more values. And thank you for all of the attendees and the panelists, and for the organizers for having us today.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the audience.
Yaron, one remark, I think that you mentioned it in the beginning, but really I think this is an open hand to all the audience, that they can contact us whenever they want with any question they have. If you have other challenges that you're looking for and solutions that you're looking for, we'll be more than happy. You have Carla in Chile, you have Sephora in France, you have Paola in Italy, and we really are eager to help you. So just don't be shy, contact us. We will try our best to give you a personalized treatment and show you the way into the Israeli market. Of course, we have here one of the best bunches, but we can go ahead also with other ideas. So this is at least for me.
Yoni, just to add that well aware of the water issues in Chile. I'm sure it's similar in Europe. In Chile, after 10 years of drought, the water challenge is great, and it's very similar to what we used to have in Israel. So there is a lot of experience, and just to say, we saw 5 amazing companies today, but there are more than 250 companies dealing only with water issues in Israel. So we're here for you, and we'll be happy to make those connections.
Right, and it's also good to say that what we mostly do is less events like we've seen, like this one today. Usually we work with one player and we build a portfolio to his needs, a portfolio of companies by your choosing. So this is an invitation to the audience to tell us that if something is interesting for you, we can scout for you. We can basically think about an event like this dedicated to a specific topic which is interesting for you. These are the things that we're doing mostly in the last year, Corona time, of Zoom time. We've done a lot of pitching sessions like this, dedicated to one specific company who's interested in solutions, less big events like this. And this is the direction we would like to take it from here, to follow up on this event and to see what we do with this interest that we've seen today.
Yaron, if I may add one
Yes.
sentence or two.
Of course.
And I will add on what has been just said. I think that the viticulture should come out of a comfort zone, like traditional is totally, I don't like the word traditional. Usually it's attached to positives, to something positive, but usually it's just, I'm sorry if I offend someone, laziness or fear from technology. I think that the examples that were brought here are amazing in the sense that they can integrate modern technology and usage of data for the best applications in viticulture, and to give really added tools to the farmers to have good and better products. So I totally am eager to see more of these kind of events and more of academy industry relations. Also, this I would like to add. There are many South Americans and Italians among the audience. I would like really to have more and more interactions between industries and between academy and industry among the countries.
It's also something that Israel is known for the interaction between industry, academy, government. Great. So yeah, so thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And until the next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Grazie a
Toda.
voi.
Grazie. Grazie.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Ciao, grazie.
Arrivederci.
Grazie. Merci.
Arrivederci. Bye bye.
Ciao, grazie.